Most people with multiple debts don't have a strategy. They just pay whatever feels most urgent that month. Maybe the card with the highest minimum. Maybe the one that sent a scary notice. Maybe the one they feel most guilty about. That's not a plan. That's financial anxiety wearing the mask of a plan. There are two actual frameworks that personal finance people debate constantly: the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. Both will get you out of debt. Both require the same basic discipline, paying more than the minimum. But they work differently. They feel different. And for a lot of people, one will work far better than the other. Not because it's mathematically superior, because of how human beings actually behave under financial pressure. So let's understand both from the inside out: mechanism, trade-off, and where most people quietly go wrong. The debt snowball was made popular by a financial commentator, but the idea is older than that. You list all your debts by balance, smallest to largest. Ignore interest rates for now. You pay the minimums on everything. Then you throw every extra dollar at the smallest balance. Once that's gone, you take the full payment you were making on it and add it to the next smallest. The payments stack, the momentum builds. You're rolling a snowball downhill. Say you have 4 debts: a $400 store card, a $1,200 medical bill, a $4,000 personal loan, a $9,000 car balance. Under Snowball, you attack the $400 first, with any extra cash, $50, $80, $100 a month. That's gone in a few months. Then that payment rolls into the medical bill. Then that rolls into the loan, and so on. The math doesn't care about this order, but your brain does, and that matters more than most people admit. Paying off a debt completely, even a small one, produces a real psychological shift. It reduces the number of open accounts draining your attention. It gives you proof that the system works. For people who have tried and quit before, that first win is often the only thing that keeps them going. Now the debt avalanche is the opposite in terms of ordering, but identical in structure otherwise. You list debts by interest rate, highest APR to lowest, regardless of balance size. You pay minimums on everything. Then every extra dollar goes to the highest rate debt. Once that's paid, that payment rolls down to the next highest rate, and so on. If that $9,000 car loan has a 6% rate and your $400 store card is at 27%, you ignore the small card first. You attack the 27% debt because it's bleeding you the most per month in interest charges. Mathematically, this is the faster and cheaper path. Over the life of the payoff, you spend less money total. Sometimes the difference is hundreds of dollars. Sometimes it's more, depending on how large the high-rate balances are. On paper, Avalanche wins. Most finance calculators will confirm this with any realistic set of numbers. But here's where the real-world data gets uncomfortable. Most people don't pay off their debt using the Avalanche method. Not because they're bad at math, because the highest interest debt is often also the largest balance. And attacking a debt for 6 months without seeing it disappear is genuinely demoralizing. You're making progress that doesn't feel like progress. The number is shrinking, but it's still there. Still large. Still looming. A lot of people quietly stop throwing extra money at it. They buy something, they get discouraged. They tell themselves they'll restart next month. This is not a character flaw. It's how most humans relate to delayed gratification under financial stress. The avalanche assumes you can sustain motivation over a longer runway with no visible wins. Some people absolutely can. If you're analytically driven, track numbers obsessively, and don't need emotional milestones, Avalanche is likely the right fit. But if you've tried strict budgeting before and drifted off it, that's useful information about yourself. The snowball accounts for the behavioral side of debt payoff in a way the Avalanche does not. Finishing a debt, even a tiny one, changes your relationship with the process. You stop feeling like someone just managing damage. You start feeling like someone making actual choices. That shift in identity is underrated. It changes how you talk to yourself about money. It changes whether you open the bank app to check progress or avoid it because it feels hopeless. There's a version of this debate that nobody talks about, and it's the one that actually trips people up. Both methods assume you have a consistent extra amount to throw at debt each month, but a lot of people's income isn't that clean. Variable hours, freelance work, commission-based pay. One month you have $200 extra, the next month you're short $80 and skipping groceries mentally. In that environment, the snowball has a quiet advantage. Smaller debts disappear faster, which reduces your minimum payment obligations. If your income drops, you have fewer mandatory minimums to cover. That's a real cash flow benefit, not just a morale one. The Avalanche keeps more accounts open longer, which means more minimum payments staying active during a bad month. This doesn't make Avalanche wrong, but it's a trade-off that most calculators don't factor in. Now there's a third path that some people land on after trying both. It isn't a formal method. They pick one or two small debts to kill quickly for momentum, then shift to highest rate targeting after. It's a hybrid. It costs a little more than pure Avalanche, gives more early wins than pure Snowball. For people with a mix of tiny balances and large high-rate debts, this sometimes fits better than either strict method. Not because it's clever, because it matches the actual shape of their debt, not a textbook example. The mistake most people make when choosing a method is treating it like a theoretical exercise. They read a comparison, pick whichever one sounds more sophisticated, and then apply it to their real life without adjustment. The Avalanche sounds smarter, so people choose it to feel like they're doing the intelligent thing. Then they stall on a large high-interest balance for 8 months and quietly abandon the whole plan. The Snowball sounds almost too simple, so analytically minded people dismiss it without actually testing their own consistency. Then they end up paying minimum payments on 5 cards for 2 years because they never committed to either. The question isn't which method wins in a spreadsheet. The question is which method you will actually follow for 12 to 24 months. Debt payoff is not a sprint. Even aggressive payoff timelines stretch across years for most people carrying real balances. The method that keeps you engaged, consistent, and mentally in the process is the one that works better for you. Not better in theory, better in practice. Those are different things. There's also a variable that changes the entire calculation, and most comparisons skip it entirely. If you have a debt in collections, or one that's close to defaulting, neither method applies cleanly. That debt needs immediate attention regardless of balance or interest rate, because the consequences of default are separate from interest math. Damaged credit, legal risk, wage garnishment in some cases, these aren't interest rate problems, they're structural financial damage. Handle the emergency first, then pick a method for the remaining debts. Similarly, if one of your debts has a promotional 0% period ending soon, that changes the priority order. A 0% balance that converts to 24% APR in 4 months isn't a low-rate debt anymore. It's a ticking rate. Real debt payoff decisions require looking at your actual statements, not a generic ranked list. What's the APR? When does it reset? Is there a penalty rate hiding in the fine print? What are the minimums? These details matter more than which method sounds correct in a YouTube comment section debate. One more thing that rarely gets said directly. The method only works if you stop adding to the debt while paying it down. This sounds obvious. It is not obvious when you're using credit to cover monthly gaps in income. If you're paying down a card during the week and charging groceries and gas on it by the weekend, the balance isn't shrinking. It's a treadmill. And the method doesn't matter if the balance keeps refilling from ongoing spending. Before choosing Snowball or Avalanche, the more important question is whether your monthly cash flow supports actual payoff at all. If spending consistently exceeds income, the debt problem is a cash flow problem first. Method second. That gap has to close before any payoff strategy can work. Not perfectly, but enough to create real surplus each month. Once you have surplus, even $75 or $100 a month, now you have a real choice between methods. And at that scale, Snowball often wins. Not mathematically, but in terms of actually finishing the job. Because finishing is what most people with debt have never done. And finishing once changes what you believe is possible. Pick the method you'll stay with. Check your statements before you rank the debts. Know your actual minimums and rates. If you have a defaulting or near default balance, deal with that before anything else. And if you're not sure which method fits you, look at your history. Have you started and stopped before? That's your answer. The method that gives you early proof that it's working is the one worth choosing.